Tonight,
it is disappointing.
lower potash prices and a drought has turned the province's billion-dollar surplus into a deficit. The province's parental rights bill is now law. We spoke to both sides about the controversial law. Plus, the positive impact that changing building and street names have had on the Indigenous community.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Monday, November 27th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Plaster, filling in for Sam McKeag, who is away tonight. Saskatchewan's billion-dollar surplus has evaporated. Just 8 months after projecting a massive surplus, Saskatchewan's finance minister says the province is in a deficit position. Adam Hunter has the details.
Saskatchewan's latest mid-year financial update is projecting a $250 million deficit. That's a $1.3 billion reduction from the surplus that was originally predicted in March. Finance Minister Donna Harpower says the change is due in part to drought that resulted in crop insurance payouts, along with lower potash prices and sales than expected.
It is disappointing, but as I said, positive. But I'm still very optimistic because of the strength that we're seeing in all of our economic indicators.
Harpower says the drought reduced crop production by 20%. That wasn't the only reduction. The Finance Ministry is projecting a $717 million decrease in non-renewable resources, with the majority of that coming in potash. Harpower says the last few years have seen the budget affected by, quote, extreme events.
We're looking at a pandemic, which of course brought the fiscal position of the province down because the economy was slowed down. Then we had it bounce back because of global unrest, and that's when our resource revenue bounced up to extreme levels. And then we had the largest or the most catastrophic drought, which brought it down again. Those are all extreme events.
With an election on the horizon next year, the government had not ruled out a tax cut. Harpower says the mid-year update makes a reduction in the PST or other taxes unlikely. The opposition says the government has squandered a resource boom.
But whether times are good or times are bad from a fiscal perspective, what a government has to do is make sure they're a good steward of public resources. And this is a government that has an awful record of wasting the hard-earned tax dollars of Saskatchewan people.
Wotherspoon says with this latest deficit projection, the government will only have one surplus in the last 9 years. He says it's not spending wisely and instead relying on taxes to make up the difference. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
The opposition NDP's human rights critic has apologized for liking a social media post that some consider anti-Semitic. Jennifer Bowes recently liked an Instagram post that featured a video of people chanting, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Because of that, Premier Scott Moe accused her of supporting anti-Semitism because Bowes liked the post in question. The government has openly supported Israel since the deadly Hamas invasion. Bowes says she's sorry for any hurt her actions caused. She says she's unliked the post in question and condemned Islamophobia and anti-Semitism in all its forms. Saskatchewan nurses have a message for provincial leaders. The healthcare system is falling apart and needs to be fixed now.
Unsafe staffing's got to go! Hey, hey, ho, ho! Unsafe staffing's got to go!
Dozens of nurses and supporters marched in Saskatoon to get their message across. Nurses say there aren't enough staff, so patients aren't getting the timely care or compassion that they need. They also say there's overcrowding, hallway medicine, and overflowing emergency departments. The professionals say the current situation is unsafe for patients and not sustainable for nurses.
I'm seeing unsafe staffing. We are taking care of, it's just one person to 8 people sometimes. Patients have no privacy, no dignity. We are doing pad changes in the hallways. We have to hold up blankets just to make some sort of wall around their hallway bed. I'm seeing junior nurses starting to get burnt out already. I've only been working for 4 years. I've been a nurse and only 3 in emergency, and I already feel burnt out. So pretty soon, if we continue like this, we're going to have nobody left to care for the public.
The registered nurses say they know steps that could be taken to fix the problem, but they say the people that in power need to listen. The province is giving the Saskatchewan Research Council $80 million to help bring a microreactor. The money will go towards things like licensing and public consultation. Premier Scott Moe announced the money this morning. If all goes to plan, the province expects the reactor to be operational by 2029. The Saskatchewan Research Council says the microreactor could power a 3,000-home community for a decade, and it would operate on the equivalent of 3 fuel drums of about 200 litres.
In some of our northern communities that are powered by diesel, or mine sites that are provided by diesel, those 3 drums replace a million drums of diesel. I'll say that again. 3 drums of spent fuel replaces a million drums of diesel. That million drums of diesel represents 500,000 tons of CO2.
Saskatchewan says it will have a better idea of the microreactor's final location as it moves closer to being regulated. You may have noticed some streets and buildings in Saskatchewan have been renamed over the past few years. The new names reflect our history and Indigenous languages. Louise Big Eagle has more on why this is important to Indigenous communities.
They agreed by consensus that it would be a Cree name. The Cree translation would be Mama Wiati Tan.
Jolie Begigal Kiwedaway is a community activist in Regina. Whenever the city renames a street or building in an Indigenous language, she welcomes it as an act of reconciliation.
There's this big disconnection to the history of this land and the Indigenous contributions to this land. And so by naming buildings, by acknowledging that history, that true history, that's really just highlighting contributions our ancestors made to the well-being of our community.
Begigal Kiwedaway sat on a board that gave the name Mama Wietitan Center its Cree name. And this recreation center has been renamed the Mitakiwa Oasa Center, which means all my relations in Dakota. In Saskatoon, John A. Macdonald Road has been renamed Mio Wakotowin Road, which is Cree for good relationship. There was some opposition.
It is difficult to pronounce and spell, making it hard for residents of the street to tell others where they live.
But Begigal Kiwedaway points to Regina's $350,000 renovation of a German glockenspiel clock.
I know how to say the glockenspiel. There's been a lot of funds directed towards different community groups within this community. And so, I think there needs to be some funds directed toward an educational campaign to help the community say maybe what there's perceived as difficult names.
The name that we chose in Huntscaminum is Lachen.
The city of Vancouver has created education materials to help teach the pronunciation and the Indigenous history. Cree language teacher Simon Bird says Saskatchewan people should use this as an opportunity to learn.
Number 1, to be patient. Number 2, to be respectful. Number 3, to just try.
Begigal Kiwedaway wants this street name changed next. It's named after a man who oversaw racist policies that starved Indigenous people. She says the Indigenous community should decide what the street is called. Louise Begigal, CBC News, Regina.
Thanks, Louise. 2025 is going to be a big year for university football in Saskatchewan.
Yes, I do. It's a great day for university football in Canada, and I'm happy to say that we will be heading west in 2025 to Regina, Saskatchewan.
Regina will be hosting the Vanier Cup for the very first time in 2025 at Mosaic Stadium. This will only be the 3rd time Canada West has hosted the Vanier in the 60 years of the game. The other 2 were that chilly 2006 game in Saskatoon and 2011 in Vancouver. The University of Montreal Carabin won this year's version of the Vanier Cup 16-9 over the UBC Thunderbirds in Kingston, Ontario. A beautiful sunny day with above normal temperatures to grace the grand reopening of the Mewasan Trail through Kiwanis Memorial Park in Saskatoon. The area situated behind the Bessborough has been completely renovated with new benches, paths, and landscaping. It looks like there's going to be a couple more nice days to enjoy the outdoors, not just there, but across the province. Aishwarya Duda will be back after the break to tell us more. Stick around, folks.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
It's a beautiful, clear night in Regina, currently -5, as it was a mixed bag of weather across the province this weekend. So we had a little bit of snow, a little bit of sun, and some nice winter nights like tonight. So what's in store for this week? Aishwarya Duda joins us now for more on that. Aishwarya?
Some flurries here and there, but mostly very close to seasonal temperatures across the province. A bit of a gradient going on. Let's take a look at those current temperatures. Cooler in the northeastern side of the province, but they warm up as you go towards the southwest. So -16 in Collins Bay, -13 in Stony Rapids, going south to La Ronge, -6. Saskatoon was at -1 earlier today, and Maple Creek at 0 degrees. They actually went up to 2 this afternoon. And if we zoom into the south and central regions as well, we'll see that gradient. Hudson Bay and Yorkton at -8, Regina at -5, Swift Current at -2. And those warm temperatures continue into tomorrow, actually going above the freezing mark for a lot of us in the province. Even up in the north, those warm temperatures will continue before we get into Wednesday, when we see a bit of that drop taking us back to those seasonal temperatures. And let's take a look at what's going on in the sky, seeing some of that snowfall and flurries passing through the province. They go quickly after some snow in La Ronge, Prince Albert, and Stony Rapids, but they leave us with some clear skies through south and central for tomorrow before another small system rolls in on Wednesday, bringing with it some flurries here and there, but nothing significant. It leaves us on Thursday with some cloud cover throughout the province. In terms of accumulating snowfall, nothing significant for south and central, but in the north is where we're seeing that swath of snow. South End getting 7 centimeters, Stony Rapids around 17 centimeters. Winds staying calm throughout tonight, but getting into tomorrow, they start gusting up to 40 kilometers an hour before they die down once again as we get into Wednesday, and staying like that until that. Regina, let's take a look at your forecast for the next 7 days. Tomorrow we see that jump in temperatures going up to 3 degrees, light winds, and the sunshine continues as we get into the rest of the work week. We go back down to those seasonal temperatures around -5 on the weekend, and then into the weekend as well, seeing those close to seasonal temperatures. Saskatoon as well, seeing that jump tomorrow up to 4 degrees. A bit breezy on Wednesday, overnight lows in the -teens, but sunshine throughout the day. And as we get into the weekend there, Saturday at -7, overnight low of -13, so very close to seasonal. But then as we get into next week on Monday, we'll see that chance of flurries coming in. Overall, though, very close to seasonal temperatures, some above seasonal temperatures like we see that tomorrow, but mostly very seasonal.
The province's Parental Bill of Rights is now law. There was support, but there was also a lot of resistance along the way. Now there's fear about the fallout. Sam Sampson spoke to both sides about what the Parents' Rights Law protects and what it may put in danger.
Make school safe! Make school safe!
Parents across Canada are keeping an eye on the fight behind Saskatchewan's new law, the Parents' Bill of Rights.
Yes.
Mr. McMorris.
Yes.
This fall, after an emergency session and the notwithstanding clause, Saskatchewan's Parents' Bill of Rights became law.
I assent to this bill.
Canada's first provincial education law that could limit gender identity in schools.
This bill, at its very core, is about us providing parents the right, not the opportunity, to support their child.
The most controversial part is that school staff now have to get parental permission before using a different name or gender identity for students under 16, like changing pronouns. Instantly, critics shared anger and fear the law could hurt trans kids, so a divided province emerged.
I would have rather died in school than have gotten a phone call to my parents.
We have the right to know what's going on with our children.
The province says its parental bill of rights is based off of what parents want. So we're here in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, to hear what some of them have to say. And Dustin, what about you? How many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids. One of the biggest things becomes having the control over what my kids, what they're hearing, what they're learning, what they're being taught.
I would like to see this be a law across the country.
Murray Fraze and Dustin Matthews like the new law. They say parenting has changed and they need extra help.
They have everything right at their fingertips to be able to explore, quite honestly, some pretty scary subjects. If there's issues that are happening behind your back and going on without our knowing, that it adds a huge variable of security to know that legally now we have to be informed as parents.
With preteens and teens of their own, these lifelong friends say the law protects what they know as the family unit.
It seems that a lot of these ideas, these ideologies, these whatever you want to call them, it's forced its way in as you have to accept this. And I think that's kind of where the panic button comes in. If this is the conversation that my kid is going to have, it's important that they have it with me first.
And what are you talking about specifically when you say ideologies?
I guess I speak of that in general terms, and it applies to far more things than gender identity. I mean, even the fact of changing names. I'm sorry, but he doesn't have that authority to do that.
But some say a child would have that authority and that this law violates their charter rights. As individuals, parents and kids all have fundamental freedoms like the freedom of thought, the right to equality, and the right to liberty and security of the person. And one person's rights are not more important than another's.
When I think parental rights, I think of the big 3. I think healthcare, education, cultural, and religion.
Family lawyer Kathleen Peterson says the idea of parental rights comes up in her work, but she's unsure how this law will play out in court.
So parents have that circle of rights in relation to their children, to the limits of where the law says, no, you can't do that.
So in court, the judge sides with what's best for the child, not the parent. What concerns you about, the lack of specificity when we talk about parental rights?
I think that people are using, some people, not everybody, but I think that people are using rights as a cudgel. It's a club to beat the other side with. It's not about what the parents believe or what the parents are comfortable with. What is in the child's best interest?
The idea of parental rights has gotten a lot of attention lately. In the U.S., hundreds of parents' rights bills have been introduced just this year, most targeting gender and sex education. The Canadian movement culminated in September's 1 Million March for Children, a national push to cut sex and gender curriculum and gender-free washrooms in schools.
The government is not our dad and mom because we have the say on our kids, not you. So we respect gays, we respect lesbians, we respect all the people, but they have to respect our rights too.
But Evan Balgord with the Canadian Anti-Hate Network says there are kids who can't go to their parents.
Just families that maybe aren't supportive of their being gay or trans makes us very concerned because those situations have a great potential for abuse.
He says for decades, parental rights has been a buzzword to spread homophobic and anti-trans rhetoric, all sowing distrust in the education system.
You'll often see arguments about parental rights appearing alongside, not always, but very, very frequently, arguments against trans people existing in general.
In this space, Regina's queer community choir can just be. It's a place Lene Hicks often brings her non-binary 16-year-old.
I don't want to be that person that puts up barriers. I want to be the parent that provides opportunity.
She wants young queer kids to know others can offer that support.
If they need a listening ear or someone to understand without judgment, that's not going to go tell their parents, then I'm that person.
Regina teacher Brenton Dickey started this choir.
I get to work with kids on being open and accepting.
He says this law puts his and his colleagues' jobs at risk if they don't follow protocol.
Schools, it kind of stresses me out because I'm thinking well, how long until they start telling queer teachers that they can't be teaching in the schools if we're going down this road? If a kid came up to me and was coming out, I'd probably have to be hey, have you told your parents? And then, which is the same conversation as usual, but then it shifts to okay, now I have to go and tell my admin, and then they have to phone your parents and talk about it, which is scary for the kids. And I think we're going to see probably a lot of kids not coming out, but also looking at self-harm and depression.
There is nobody in this world that loves my child more than I, or my wife and I.
It seems everyone just wants to be a good parent. It's just unclear if this new law will help that happen. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Swift Current.
Cloudy skies in Regina tonight. Let's take a look. Those temperatures will be at -6 at midnight. Winds staying pretty calm, but as we get into tomorrow, they really start picking up in the morning, gusting upwards of 50 kilometers an hour. Temperature also rises to -3 by 8 a.m., but clear skies in the forecast. Getting to that noon hour, temperature will rise to 0 degrees, but it continues to be windy. Saskatoon as well, cloudy tonight, but those winds start earlier here than they do in Regina. Getting into the morning by 8 a.m., the temperatures will rise to -1 with those clear skies, and the sun will also be shining. By the noon hour in Saskatoon, temperature will be 2 degrees down. That wind continues to be gusting upwards of 50 kilometers an hour, but the temperature will actually rise to 4 degrees in Saskatoon as well.
Thanks, Ashwarya. It's a pretty special day for Nick Kazuska. He's turning 104 years old. Over the weekend, he celebrated the big day, jamming with a few friends.
This is Nick Kazuska, and I'm 104 years old today.
He plays the stand-up bass, keeps in time, he dances.
I've never expected something like this,
What keeps you young?
Nothing really. When I was born, my mother said that she couldn't nurse me. I was number 4 in the family out of 8. So she put me on tea and sugar, and I still drink tea and sugar. Yeah.
His mind, the clarity of his mind, everything, it just doesn't get any better. He's so even-tempered. He just enjoys life. He just is gentle. He's kind, and he's just one of a kind. 104 years old, and he's going strong at it.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/Sask or /Saskatoon. Thanks for watching and have a great night.